When people talk about the governor in The Walking Dead, most think of David Morrissey's smooth-talking leader. The guy who could share a drink with you one minute and put a bullet in your head the next. But if you've only seen the show, you've met the PG-13 version, because the governor in the comics was something else entirely. No charm act, no tragic backstory to make you feel bad for him, just pure, unfiltered sadism from the very beginning. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on one of the most infamous villains in The Walking Dead, a man so vicious that AMC cut, rewrote, or completely avoided some of his darkest moments. We're talking amputations, torture scenes that would have never made it past network censors, and an ending that hits just way harder than what we saw on TV. Same name, totally different villain. Let's dive in. So, quick refresher for anyone who hasn't rewatched season 3 in a while. The TV version of the governor, played by David Morrissey, is introduced as this almost too good to be true leader of Woodbury. He's charming, well-spoken, and makes you think, wow, maybe Rick's group really could live here. Sure, he's hiding a few skeletons in his closet, or, you know, a Walker daughter in the closet, but AMC framed him as a man who'd been broken by tragedy, someone you could almost sympathize with. In the comics, though, forget the charm offensive. The governor is Philip Blake, and his introduction is basically a giant middle finger to the idea of redeemable villains. From the jump, he is brutal, sadistic, and not interested in winning anyone's trust. He rules with fear, violence, and pure shock value. You don't wonder what went wrong in his past. You just wonder how he's still breathing after everything he's done. And here's the thing, I'm not saying that one is better than the other. They're just completely different characters who happen to share the same name and haircut, which means the show left a ton of the governor's most infamous stories on the cutting room floor, and that's what we're about to dig into. The biggest thing you need to understand about the governor is that shift from comic to TV didn't just tone him down, it rewired his entire DNA as a character. In the comics, Philip Blake is unapologetically evil. No moral dilemmas, no moments where you think, maybe he's not so bad. He's the kind of villain you hate instantly and keep hating until his last breath. But on TV, though, AMC just went for the slow burn. They gave him layers, a tragic backstory, glimpses of vulnerability, and enough humanity that some fans actually kind of rooted for him, at least until his true colors came out. And that changes everything. In the comics, you fear him because you know exactly what he's capable of. On TV, you fear what he might be capable of, and you spend more time waiting for that mask to slip. It's the difference between a hurricane that's already hit and a storm building on the horizon. Both are definitely dangerous, but they hit you in totally different ways. So here's my question for you before we even get any further, and I want to see the comments blow up with this. Do you prefer your villains layered and complex, or the kind you just love to hate? I would love to hear your comments down below on that. Either way, let's start with the most obvious, and that's personality. In the comics, the governor is Philip Blake, and he's pure sadism wrapped in a sweaty tank top. He's unpredictably cruel and thrives on making people suffer, not just physically, but mentally too. There's no charm campaign, no shaking hands and kissing babies. If you're in his world, you're either fearing him or you're dead. Simple as that. Case in point, Rick's hand. In the comics, Rick meets the governor for the very first time in Woodbury, and within minutes, literally minutes, the governor takes a machete and hacks Rick's hand clean off. No dramatic buildup at all, no intimidation speech, just instant, pure instant, calculated act of dominance. The message is crystal clear. I could take whatever I want from you whenever I want. And from that moment forward, Rick is permanently changed. He has to relearn how to shoot, to fight, and survive with one hand, something that defines his character arc for the rest of the comic run. The show completely skipped this, at least until The Ones Who Live, but that's a whole different thing. Anyway, Rick keeps both of his hands for the entire Walking Dead series, which most fans chalk up to production costs, CGI complications, and maybe AMC not wanting to permanently handicap their leading man. But that one missing limb in the comic says everything you need to know about how quickly comic governor establishes himself as a force you do not want to mess with. And Rick was not the only one to suffer. In the comics, the governor captured Michonne and subjected her to days of sadistic, calculated torment, the kind of cruelty AMC would never even attempt to put on screen. And as a matter of fact, some of the graphic elements of this, as well as what comes in the Revenge stuff, I can't even say in this video, so I'm going to try to keep it as tight-lipped as I can by giving you some details, but whatever. Either way, it's the single most personal and disturbing act he commits, I'm talking about Michonne, and it sets the stage for one of the most infamous revenge scenes in the entire Walking Dead franchise. If you read the comics, you know exactly where this is going, Michonne's revenge. After enduring days of relentless abuse at the governor's hands, Michonne escapes, but she doesn't just run. She comes back for him, knocks him out cold, and turns his punishment into an unforgettable spectacle. First, she gouges out his remaining eye. Then she pulls his teeth out one by one with pliers, each yank more deliberate than the last, literally. She slices off his fingers. She nails parts of him to a board so he can't move. And through it all, she talks to him, letting him know exactly why this is happening. By the way, the whole time he's naked, and there's a lot more details with that I'm not going to get into in this video, but just picture that in your head. Either way, no matter what, she doesn't kill him. That would be mercy. She leaves him alive, mutilated and humiliated, so he can feel every ounce of pain and powerlessness he put her through. Now, the show gives us a nod to this moment, but it's a blink and you miss its scene by comparison. Michonne does stab the governor in the eye with her sword during the prison arc, but that's really it outside of killing Penny. We're going to talk about Penny a little bit later for like a moment, but regardless, there's no drawn-out reckoning, no methodical dismantling of the man piece by piece. The TV version just treats it as one quick beat before moving the plot along, whereas the comics drags you through every second until you're almost as exhausted as the characters, and honestly, it's something that you didn't even want to look at. I'm not one of those people who likes like gory stuff, so yeah, that one really stuck with me, I'm not gonna lie. And Michonne's revenge isn't the only time the governor turns violence into a spectacle. In Woodbury, he stages gladiator matches that pit human survivors against each other, surrounded by chained walkers snapping at them from the sidelines. This isn't training, and it isn't about justice. It's literally just entertainment, pure and simple, with the whole community cheering like it's fight night. The TV version does keep the crowd and the arena, but tones it way down. Fighters go up against toothless walkers, and the danger just feels more like a bar brawl than a death match. The moral horror of humans killing each other for sport with walkers as props never makes it to the screen. That's really the difference. In the comics, violence isn't just part of the world, it's theater. In the show, it's just an action beat. On the page, the governor's leadership style is simple: obey or die. There's no council, no votes, no pretending everyone has a say. He runs Woodbury like a warlord runs a compound. Loyalty is enforced at gunpoint, and fear is the glue that holds everything together. If you cross him, you don't just get exiled, you disappear. That's why the gladiator pits and public punishments work. They're not just entertainment, they're reminders of who's in control. His origin, which we eventually get in the Rise of the Governor novel trilogy, makes this all even darker. In that backstory, Philip Blake isn't born a monster. He starts as a regular guy just trying to survive with his daughter Penny, his brother Brian, and a few friends, but over time, tragedy and loss twist him into something unrecognizable. And here's the kicker. In the novel's twist ending, the man we've been following the whole time, Philip, actually dies, and his brother Brian takes over his identity. That means the governor that we meet in the comics is Brian Blake wearing Philip Make's name like a mask. He becomes even more dangerous because his entire existence is a lie layered on top of brutality. And yes, I do realize I just said Make instead of Blake. I don't have an excuse for that one. The show just doesn't adapt any of this. AMC's The Governor is Philip Blake still, but his past is mostly a mystery. And yeah, I know that may be attributed to the timing of when these books get released, but just the books have just so much more depth when it comes to this. In the show, we get a couple flashbacks of him before Woodbury, broken by the loss of his wife and the Walker version of his daughter Penny, but that's it. no brother, no identity swap, no nothing crazy like that. It misses that slow spiral into tyranny, and instead the TV governor rules with a veneer of civility. For a long time, the people of Woodbury believe they're living in a safe, well-run community with a protective leader. His darker side stays hidden from them until much later, and even then there's a hint of maybe he's trying to do the right thing once. That's the biggest gap between these two portrayals. Comic governor never cared about looking good. He only cared about staying in power, but TV governor cared a lot about looking good right up until the moment he didn't. If the governor's introduction in the comics is pure shock and brutality, his exit is absolute chaos. The final prison assault is one of the bloodiest, most devastating moments in the entire series, and it makes the TV version look almost restrained. In the comics, the governor rolls up to the prison with a small army and heavy weaponry. The attack is relentless, gunfire ripping through the fences, walkers flooding in through the breaches, and yeah, I know some of this sounds a lot like the TV show, but in the middle of the firefight is where things get really crazy, because Lori is running with baby Judith in her arms when a bullet from Lily Call's rifle hits her. Both Lori and Judith are killed instantly. The baby's lifeless body falling from her mother's arms is it's horrifying. It's a death that completely shatters Lily, who never wanted any of this. Right before the assault kicks into full gear, the governor also publicly executes Tyrese. In the comics, Tyrese is captured during a raid taken outside the prison gates. The governor drags him into the front lines, forces everyone to watch, and beheads him with Michonne's katana. It's meant to send a clear message: surrender or this'll happen to all of you. It's a brutal power play that instantly raises the stakes, but on TV this moment is reimagined with Herschel in Tyrese's place. The governor still uses Michonne's sword, but the scene is slower, heavier, and more drawn out. Herschel tries to speak and reason until the very last second. And while Tyrese in the comics is a fan favorite, Herschel in the show is an entirely different kind of character, the moral compass, the father figure. In a lot of ways, he takes over Dale's place in terms of on TV, he takes over Dale's place because Dale didn't exist that long, and he just is really a different character. And personally, I think both versions carry equal emotional weight, just in different ways. In the comics, it's shock and intimidation, but in the show, it's heartbreak and loss of one of the most hopeful figures left in the group. The chaos spirals until the governor's own people, exhausted, angry, and realizing this entire attack was built on his lies, turn on him. Lily, grief-stricken and furious, is the one who ends it. She points a gun at him, says nothing, and pulls the trigger. It's not framed as justice from a hero, it's justice from someone who once followed him and now can't live with what they've done. The show takes a different route. By the time AMC's prison assault happens, Lori's already dead, and Judith survives. And if you've watched my videos long enough, you know how I feel about that, but that's neither here nor there. Either way, the battle's intense, but it's more contained. Fewer civilians caught in the crossfire, less pure mayhem. And the governor's death is framed as a personal vengeance. Michonne stabs him through the chest, leaving him to die before Lily delivers the final gunshot. It's satisfying for fans who invested in the prison arc characters, but it loses that sense of the governor's own people turning on him in disgust. There's no moment where the mob that once cheered him on becomes the executioner. In the comics, his ending is a collapse of the empire he built on fear. In the show, it's a reckoning delivered by heroes. Both definitely work, but they hit completely different emotional notes. Now, to be fair, there are definitely reasons AMC didn't go full comic accurate with the governor. Some of them are obvious: budget and logistics. Cutting off Rick's hand in season 3 would have meant years of expensive CGI or prosthetics for Andrew Lincoln, not to mention reblocking every action scene for a one-handed lead. And Michonne's torture revenge arc? There is no way a cable network in 2013 was going to air some of that graphic, horrible content without gutting it entirely. I mean, maybe if it was on HBO, that's a different story, but you know we didn't get that. I mean, there's also the creative choice factor, because by toning down the craziness and adding layers to the governor, AMC can make him a longer-term villain, someone that you might actually sympathize with before the mask slips. That's a storytelling move designed to keep audiences invested, similar to what they later did with Negan. In the comics, the governor is an unapologetic monster from day one, which makes him unforgettable, but also limits how long you could keep him around before the story just demands justice. So while we lost some of the most brutal, no-limits moments from the comics, we got an entirely different kind of governor on TV, one that could fool not just the characters, but the audience too. And just to be clear, I'm not here to tell you which one is better. Both versions are great in their own right. The comic governor is a nightmare you can't look away from, and the TV governor is a masterclass in slow burn villainy. With these videos, my goal is to just point out the differences and show how drastically an adaptation can shift a character's entire identity. So at the end of the day, the governor in the comics and the governor in the show share little more than a name and a haircut. And honestly, that's what makes this comparison so interesting. Both versions work, but for completely different reasons. The comic version hits you like a sucker punch, fast, brutal, and unforgettable, but the TV version lures you in, lets you think you've got him figured out, and then yanks the floor out right from under you. Same name, totally different villain.